There is a bolt on your vehicle right now that will not come off. You do not know which one yet. But the next time you try to change a brake caliper, replace an exhaust manifold stud, remove a suspension component, or pull a rusted trailer hitch, you will meet that bolt. And when you do, you will reach for the blue and yellow can of WD-40, spray it, wait 10 seconds, put the wrench on, and snap the bolt head clean off. Then you will drive to the mechanic, hand him the vehicle with a broken bolt embedded in an engine block, and watch $100 per hour drain out of your wallet while he drills, extracts, taps, and repairs the damage that your $6 can of water displacement formula could not prevent. WD-40 is not a penetrating oil. It never was. The name stands for Water Displacement Formula 40, the 40th attempt by a chemist named Norm Larsen in 1953 to create a corrosion inhibitor for the Atlas missile program. It displaces moisture from metal surfaces. That is its job. It was never designed to penetrate into the microscopic thread gap between a rusted bolt and the casting it is seized into. It sits on the surface, evaporates quickly, and leaves behind almost no lubrication in the place where lubrication matters most, which is inside the corroded threads where iron oxide crystals have mechanically locked the bolt to the surrounding metal, like a molecular weld. Meanwhile, there is a two-ingredient mixture that old-school machinists have been whispering about since the 1930s. It outperformed every single commercial penetrating oil ever tested in the only controlled, published comparison study in the history of the trade. Not by a small margin, by a factor so large that the results made the entire penetrating oil industry look like a marketing experiment. The mixture is 50% automatic transmission fluid and 50% acetone. Total cost, under $3 per batch. And the reason you have never seen it advertised, never seen it on a store shelf, and never heard a single mechanic recommend it out loud is that a $3 homebrew that outperforms a $6 billion lubricant industry cannot be allowed to exist in the public conversation. Welcome to Camping Secrets. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the best way to make sure this knowledge survives. This is where we dig up what the industry buried. Now let me show you the test results. Because this is not folklore. This is not garage mythology. This was a controlled experiment published in a respected trade journal, and the numbers are devastating to every branded product on the market. In 2007, Machinist Workshop magazine published the results of a penetrating oil comparison test that has since become the most cited, most debated, and most suppressed dataset in the metalworking community. The researchers took a batch of identical nut and bolt assemblies and scientifically rusted them to a uniform degree by soaking them in salt water under controlled conditions. They then applied various penetrating products, allowed standardized dwell time, and measured the breakout torque required to loosen each nut. Here are the results, listed by average breakout torque in foot-pounds. Lower is better. No penetrant at all. 516 foot-pounds. That is your baseline. A rusted nut on a rusted bolt with no chemical assistance. WD-40, 238 foot-pounds. The most recognized name in the hardware aisle reduced the required force by less than 54%. You still needed 238 pounds of force on a 1-foot wrench to break the nut loose. PB Blaster, 214 foot-pounds. The product marketed specifically as a penetrating catalyst performed only marginally better than WD-40, a product that is not even marketed as a penetrant. Liquid Wrench, 127 foot-pounds. A significant improvement over the first two, cutting the required force by 75% from baseline. Kano Kroil, 106 foot-pounds. Long considered the gold standard among professional machinists, Kroil reduced breakout torque by nearly 80% from baseline. At $15 to $20 per can, it is the most expensive penetrant on the market. ATF and acetone mix, 50/50ths, 53 foot-pounds. 53. A homebrew mixture of automatic transmission fluid and hardware store acetone reduced breakout torque by 90% from baseline. It outperformed Kroil by half. It outperformed WD-40 by a factor of 4.5. It required less than 1/10 the force of an untreated bolt. That result sat the entire metalworking community back in their chairs. A $3 homebrew destroyed every commercial product in the test. And the machinist community has been quietly using it ever since, passing the recipe along the same way blacksmiths once passed along tanning bark formulas, from one shop to the next, by word of mouth, never loud enough for the marketing departments to hear. Now let me explain why it works. Because the chemistry is elegant, and once you understand it, you will never look at a rusted bolt the same way. A seized bolt is not simply stuck by friction. It is mechanically locked by iron oxide crystals that have grown inside the thread gap. When steel corrodes, iron atoms on the surface react with oxygen and water to form iron oxide, rust, Rust occupies more physical volume than the iron it replaced. The expansion is roughly 6 to 10 times the volume of the original metal. Inside a bolt thread, this expansion fills the microscopic gap between the bolt threads and the threads of the hole. The rust crystals grow into each other from both surfaces, interlocking like two pieces of Velcro being pressed together. The bolt is no longer held by friction. It is held by a mechanical bridge of iron oxide crystals that have effectively welded the two surfaces together. To free the bolt, a penetrating oil must accomplish three things simultaneously. It must reach the rust, it must dissolve or displace the rust, and it must lubricate the thread surfaces so the bolt can turn once the mechanical bridge is broken. Here is where the ATF and acetone combination delivers on all three better than any single commercial product. Acetone is one of the most aggressive solvents commercially available. It has an extremely low viscosity, lower than water, which gives it exceptional capillary action. Capillary action is the force that draws a thin liquid into a narrow gap against gravity, the same force that makes water climb up a paper towel. The thinner the liquid and the narrower the gap, the stronger the capillary force. Acetone's viscosity is so low that it penetrates gaps that thicker oils cannot physically enter. It is drawn into the thread space by capillary pressure, flowing around and between the iron oxide crystals that are locking the bolt. Once inside, the acetone attacks the rust directly. It is a polar organic solvent that disrupts the adhesion between the oxide layer and the base metal. It does not dissolve iron oxide the way an acid would, but it undercuts the bond between the rust and the steel, loosening the mechanical grip of the crystals on the thread surfaces. But acetone alone has a critical flaw. It evaporates almost instantly at room temperature. Its boiling point is only 133 degrees Fahrenheit. Within seconds of application, the acetone begins flashing off, leaving behind an empty, dry thread gap. The bolt has been penetrated but not lubricated. You turn the wrench, and the bare metal surfaces grind against each other. That is how bolts snap. This is where the automatic transmission fluid performs its role. ATF is a highly refined petroleum oil blended with friction modifier additives, anti-wear agents, seal conditioners, and detergent packages. It was originally developed in the 1940s for General Motors Hydromatic transmissions, the first mass-produced automatic transmission in automotive history. Its formulation is designed to lubricate metal-on-metal contact surfaces under extreme pressure, while remaining thin enough to flow through valve bodies and narrow hydraulic passages. When you mix ATF with acetone, the acetone thins the transmission fluid dramatically, reducing its viscosity to a level that allows it to be pulled into the thread gap by capillary action alongside the acetone. The two liquids penetrate together. The acetone reaches the deepest point of the corrosion, disrupting the oxide bond. Then the acetone evaporates, leaving behind a thin film of ATF coating every internal surface of the thread. The ATF remains as a high-performance lubricant exactly where it is needed, between the bolt threads and the casting, in the microscopic space where no brush, no spray, and no conventional oil could reach on its own. The acetone carries the ATF in. Then the acetone leaves. The ATF stays behind and does the work. That two-stage mechanism, penetration followed by lubrication deposition, is why the combination outperforms products that try to do both jobs with a single fluid. WD-40 is too thick to penetrate deep corrosion and too thin to lubricate effectively once it does. PB Blaster has better penetration but evaporates its solvent carrier faster than the oil component can travel. Kroil is genuinely excellent, but costs 5 to 7 times more than the ATF/acetone mix for comparable performance, and none of them achieved 53 foot-pounds in the Machinist's workshop test. The homebrew did. If you have made it this far, you already know more about penetrating oil chemistry than 99% of home mechanics and a surprising number of the professionals who charge $100 per hour to extract the bolts you could have freed yourself. Subscribe and share this with someone who is about to break a bolt this weekend on a brake job and does not know what is about to happen. Now stay with me because the industry economics behind penetrating oil are where this story gets infuriating. The global lubricant market exceeds $160 billion annually. The penetrating oil and specialty spray segment within that market generates billions in revenue across brands like WD-40, PB Blaster, Liquid Wrench, CRC, and dozens of others. WD-40 Company alone reported over $500 million in annual revenue, built primarily on a single product that is not, by its own original formulation purpose, a penetrating oil. The average home mechanic spends $30 to $60 per year on penetrating sprays, rust dissolvers, and specialty lubricants. A professional shop goes through hundreds of dollars per month, and when the bolt still breaks despite the product, the repair bill starts at $100 per hour for the mechanic's time, plus parts, plus downtime. A single quart of ATF costs $4 to $6. A quart of pure acetone costs $4 to $8 at any hardware store or paint supply shop. Mixed 50ths, one batch produces enough penetrating oil to treat hundreds of stuck bolts. The cost per application is measured in pennies. You cannot patent a mixture of ATF and acetone. Both are commodity products available at every auto parts store and hardware store in the country. The recipe has been circulating in machinist circles since at least the 1930s, possibly earlier, and the Machinist's workshop test results have been available online since 2007. There is no proprietary formula, there is no trade secret, there is no brand to build. And that is precisely why it does not exist on a store shelf. Nobody can sell it because nobody can own it. Nobody can market it because the margin is zero. Nobody can build a brand around it because the recipe is 3 words: ATF, acetone, half and half. So the industry sells you WD-40 at $6 a can for a product that scored 238 foot-pounds in the same test, where the homebrew scored 53. And they put it in a can with a red straw and a satisfying spray sound and run television commercials during football games. And you buy it because it is the name you know. The name you know costs 4 times more and performs 4 times worse than the name you have never heard. Now, here is exactly how to make it and use it. And this is the protocol that professional machinists have been using quietly in their shops for decades. Step 1. Purchase a quart of automatic transmission fluid. Standard Dexron 3 or Mercon 5 conventional ATF works best. Older formulations based on mineral oil mix more readily with acetone than newer full synthetic ATF. Look for conventional or non-synthetic on the label. A quart costs $4 to $6 at any auto parts store. Step 2. Purchase a quart of pure acetone from the paint aisle of any hardware store. Do not use nail polish remover. Nail polish remover contains additives, moisturizers, and fragrances that reduce the solvent's effectiveness. You need 100% pure acetone. A quart costs $4 to $8. Step 3. Mix equal parts ATF and acetone in a chemical-resistant container. Glass or metal works best. Standard plastic spray bottles will degrade quickly because acetone dissolves most plastics. Use a metal pump sprayer with PTFE or nylon seals, or an old glass bottle with a screw top. Shake vigorously before each use. The 2 liquids will separate when sitting, which is normal. Shaking re-emulsifies the mixture. Step 4. Apply the mixture liberally to the stuck bolt and the surrounding area. Saturate the joint. Let the liquid pool around the base of the bolt where the threads enter the casting. Gravity is your friend here. Position the work so the liquid flows into the joint rather than dripping away. Step 5. Wait. This is where most people fail. A penetrating oil is not instant, despite what the spray can labels promise. For lightly rusted fasteners, a 15 to 30 minute soak is sufficient. For moderately seized bolts, soak for 2 to 4 hours. For severely corroded fasteners that have been in place for years or decades, apply the mixture, wait overnight, apply again in the morning, and attempt removal that afternoon. Multiple applications allow repeated cycles of penetration and lubrication deposition. Step 6. Before turning the wrench, tap the bolt head sharply with a hammer several times. Mechanical shock fractures the iron oxide crystal bridges that are locking the threads. The vibration creates micro cracks in the rust, allowing the ATF that has been deposited inside the threads to flow into newly opened gaps. This combination of chemical penetration and mechanical shock is the professional extraction protocol that every experienced machinist uses and every YouTube bolt removal video forgets to mention. Step 7. Use a 6-point socket, not a 12-point. 12-point sockets contact the bolt head at smaller, more fragile points and are more likely to round the corners of a corroded hex. A 6-point socket grips the flat faces of the bolt with maximum surface contact, distributing the torque evenly and reducing the chance of rounding. Step 8. Apply slow, steady pressure. Do not jerk the wrench. A sudden shock load concentrates stress at the weakest point of the bolt, which on a corroded fastener is the junction between the threads and the shank. That is where bolts snap. Slow, increasing pressure allows the rust bridges to fracture progressively rather than transferring the full load to a single failure point. For extremely stubborn fasteners, combine the ATF/acetone soak with heat cycling. Apply the penetrant, let it soak, then use a propane torch to heat the nut, not the bolt, until it is too hot to touch but not glowing. The heat expands the nut slightly, opening a microscopic gap in the thread interface. As it cools, the contracting metal draws the penetrant deeper into the gap. Repeat the heat-soak-cool cycle 2 or 3 times. This combination of chemistry and thermal cycling will free fasteners that nothing else on Earth can move without cutting. I need to be completely honest with you about limitations and safety. Acetone is extremely flammable. Its flash point is -4 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning it can ignite at temperatures well below freezing. Do not use the ATF/acetone mixture near open flames, sparking tools, or hot exhaust components. If you are using heat cycling as described above, apply the penetrant, let the acetone fully evaporate before introducing a torch, and never spray the mixture onto a hot surface. Acetone dissolves most plastics, many paints, and some rubber compounds. Do not allow overspray to contact painted surfaces, plastic trim, rubber bushings, or wiring harness insulation. Apply with precision. A small brush or targeted spray is better than a broad aerosol pattern. The mixture has a shelf life. Acetone evaporates through any container that is not perfectly sealed. Store the mixture in an airtight glass or metal container. If stored open, the acetone will evaporate within days, leaving behind straight ATF, which is a decent penetrant on its own, but lacks the extreme capillary action that makes the combination exceptional. And one mechanical detail that saves more bolts than any chemical ever will. Before applying penetrant, try tightening the bolt a quarter turn before loosening it. A tiny clockwise rotation breaks the rust bond on the tightening side of the thread without applying the full stress of extraction. Once that initial bond cracks, the loosening torque drops dramatically. Tighten first, then loosen. This technique alone prevents more broken bolts than every spray can on the shelf combined. This recipe has been circulating in machine shops since the 1930s. The Machinist's Workshop magazine published the test data in 2007. The machinist community adopted it immediately and has been using it quietly ever since. The ATF/acetone formula has been described by multiple sources as a recipe that has been around for more than 60 years. It predates WD-40 by 2 decades. It predates PB Blaster by 3. It was old when the products you see on store shelves today were being invented. A $6 billion lubricant industry depends on you reaching for the branded can instead of the 2 bottles you could mix in your garage. A $500 million WT-40 corporation depends on you believing that a water displacement formula designed for missile casings in 1953 is the right tool for a rusted exhaust bolt in your driveway. And every mechanic who charges $100 per hour to extract a broken bolt depends on you not knowing the 3-word formula that could have freed it in your garage before it ever snapped. ATF, acetone, half and half, 53 foot-pounds. The lowest number in the only published test that ever mattered. And the recipe was old before the test was new. If this vault changed how you see the stuck bolt on your truck, your tractor, your lawnmower, or your trailer, subscribe and share this video right now. Every share puts this formula in front of someone. The hardware aisle was counting on visiting again next Saturday. Every subscription keeps this channel digging deeper into the vaults they thought were sealed forever.